All right. So, going to learn about the half shekel. I know Parsha Shkolim was already, but Parsha Shkolim is in this week's Torah portion. The Alter says to live with the times. It also means to live with what we're reading about in Torah this week. And let's go. Al posuk zeh yidu machzah shekel im chazal. Rash mitzatet as this push altera. On the pasuk, this is what you should give. Rashi quotes a teaching from the Talmud. Amar Rabbi Meir, said Rabbi Meir, Moshe Rabbeinu had difficulty to understand what exactly was meant by this half coin. So Hashem took out a coin of fire from under his throne of glory, and he showed this to Moshe Rabbeinu. He said to Moshe, this is what you should give. Give something. She showed Moshe the coin of fire from under the throne of glory, and he says, this is what you should give. We find also other examples of things that Moshe Rabbeinu had difficulty with, and God had to show Moshe Rabbeinu what he meant. Aleph, Iskasha Moshe v'Maisa Maneira, Moshe Rabbeinu had difficult understanding how to make the menorah until Hashem showed Moshe Rabbeinu a menorah of fire. Base, Niskasha Moshe al Mil Hagavana. Moshe Rabbeinu had a hard time understanding what is meant by the new moon. How were the Jewish people supposed to sanctify the new moon? Hashem showed Moshe Rabbeinu the moon in the sky, and he said to him, this is what you should see, and this is you should sanctify what looks like this. He showed him the moon. This is what Kiddush HaChodesh means. This is what the new moon means. Look at this. Gimel, the third thing that Hashem had to show Moshe Rabbeinu, regarding the prohibition of reptiles. Moshe Rabbeinu had to know which reptiles were forbidden, which reptiles were okay. And Hashem showed Moshe Rabbeinu the reptiles and says, these are the reptiles which are forbidden. And those are the three things that besides in this Torah portion, Hashem showing Moshe Rabbeinu the coin of fire, you also have to show him the menorah, you have to show him the moon, for Kiddush, to know the law of sanctifying the moon, and you have to show him the reptiles. You able to hear me well, or is the Wi-Fi not so good? You hear me well?
It's good. Yeah, I hear you well.
Okay.
That's good.
Ein move, it's understood. The Gabe Advar Machedim, Efshel Lahavin, Madua, Tzarachaya. 1 second. Okay. Legabe Advar Machedim, regarding the other things, it's understood why Hashem had to show them to Moshe. Why? You hear me? Yeah. Had to be cups and all these things, and still was made out of one solid piece. Each thing had to be in its specific place, in its own specific form, and yet had to be made out of one piece. How can you make one menorah out of one solid piece of gold, have all these intricate parts? So in order to understand this, Hashem had to show Moshe Rabbeinu how this is done. Also regarding the new moon, Moshe Rabbeinu had to know exactly what size the moon could be for this to be considered a new moon. In order to know certainly this is the moon, it has to be a certain size. And Hashem at the Moshe Rabbeinu, this is the amount of moon that has to be visible for the Jewish people to be able to say, yes, the new moon has come. To know exactly the way the moon will look in the sky. As the Gemara, it says many details. They would ask the witnesses who came to testify if the new moon had come or not. All kinds of questions they would ask the witnesses: what shape the moon was, how much of the moon did they see, and the Bezdin actually had different pieces of different examples of what the witnesses may have seen. So did you see like this? Did you see like that? Also regarding the reptiles, how would Moshe Rabbeinu know all the forbidden reptiles without seeing them? So Hashem had to show Moshe Rabbeinu all the reptiles, so Moshe Rabbeinu would know exactly what was forbidden and what wasn't forbidden. The Ili Maksa Shekel, however, the half coin, the half coin is not connected with any specific difficulty to know what it means. As they say, it's Eliezer Eved Avram. We find already by Eliezer the concept of a coin and a half coin, and how come now all of a sudden this needs to be explained. Of course, there's a coin, there's a half a coin. What's Moshe Rabbeinu having a problem with? That Hashem has to show him, Madua, Gam Kanar Lukash Baruch Hu, show the moon. We understand it was a difficult thing, astronomical calculations and the size. The reptiles we understand. The menorah was complicated, made out of one piece, intricate design. Okay, so it's understood what the question was. But what was Moshe Rabbeinu's question about the half coin, and why did Hashem have to show him the coin of fire? So Bali Tesis Masbir Menachos, the Tesis explains the Gemara Menachos. Madua in the Gemara made Hashem ben Yom Shabehem Sheskash Mesha Mena Kiddush Mner Kiddush Chayish Shatzim Machzah Shek. The Gemara says when the various things that Moshe had difficulty with, and the Gemara does not count the half coin as one of them. Why not? Tesis says the loy shaychasim niskashim el mishum the loy yahayviyad b'shum inyan imloy amarei. Regarding the half shekel, you can't say that he had a difficulty with it. Rather, Moshe Rabbeinu didn't know at all what it meant. He did, in other words, by other things, Moshe Rabbeinu knew what it was. He just didn't know the details. Here, by the half shekel, Moshe Rabbeinu had no idea at all what Hashem was talking about. That's what Tosfos says. So that's why when the Gemara says the various things Moshe had questions with, the Gemara doesn't count the half coin. Why not? Because a half coin is a different category. The other three items, Moshe Rabbeinu knew what they were in general, but he didn't know the details. Regarding the half coin, Moshe had no idea at all what Hashem was talking about. It's moving klal. Doesn't make any sense. How come Moshe didn't know how the size of a half shekel? Wow, David Issaver is in town. And if Moshe Rabbeinu doesn't know how large the half coin is, Hashem could tell him the size of the half coin. Why did Hashem have to show him anything? First of all, what doesn't Moshe understand? How come he doesn't know the amount? And second of all, if he doesn't know, so let Hashem just tell him. Why does Hashem have to show him? What does that mean? So Tosfos' answer leaves us with more questions. Tosfos doesn't really answer the question. Tosfos is just explaining the Gemara. Tosfos says, you know why the Gemara doesn't count this as one of the three things that Moshe had difficulty with? Because this was something that wasn't a question in the detail. This was a question of the whole thing. What does this mean? You have no idea. Moshe has no idea what the half coin is. So what doesn't he know about it? It's a half coin. There's a coin, there's a half coin. How hard is it? And if he doesn't know how the size of it, Hashem could just tell him the size. What's the Hashem showing him the coin of fire? Yes, okay. The question is even greater. Even if you will argue that to know the exact amount, you have to see the exact vivid amount to know what Hashem meant. If Hashem has to show it to him, fine. But why show it to him with a coin of fire? If Hashem has to show Moshe an example, right, of what he should do, what example should Hashem choose? Hashem should choose, instead of giving an example, show him the actual thing. Show him the actual half a coin. Why give him? I want to give you an example we're talking about. Let me give you a parable. If there's a coin of fire, that's what you should give, and that's the same size in silver. Show him the actual coin of silver. If Moshe doesn't know what the amount, and it's not sufficient for him to say it to him, so show him what the half coin is. Show him a half a coin. Show him a half a coin of silver. Hashem is giving him an analogy of a coin of fire. It's kind of like using an elephant to teach the color gray. You know, like it's a whole far. It's even mean, at least an elephant is gray, but here it's like you're going to a whole different thing, a coin of fire, and this metaphysical, spiritual, whatever that thing is. That's going to be an example to answer Moshe's question, if that's what his question was, the exact size of the half shekel. What's going on? When Hashem showed the moon, he showed a moon. When Hashem showed the reptiles, he showed reptiles. It wasn't reptiles of fire. It wasn't fiery snakes. He showed him snake. He showed him actual snakes and actual scorpions and things that were forbidden to eat. How come by the coin Hashem has to show him a coin of fire? The menorah was a coin of fire. Why is the menorah a coin of fire? You might want to say that in heaven, there are things in heaven are all fiery. That's how things are in heaven. So there was nothing in the world yet like the menorah. So Hashem showed him the menorah as it is in heaven, because there was no physical menorah to show him yet. Therefore, he showed him the way things are in heaven, and heaven's fiery. Okay, but the half shekel did exist in this world. There are half shekels in this world. So why does Hashem have to show him a coin of fire? Now, regarding the menorah, note 25, the Rebbe asks a question. Hashem could have done the same thing for the menorah. He could have made a golden menorah and showed him the golden menorah. If it makes more sense to make it more vivid, as the Rebbe is arguing, if it makes more sense to use a physical example in this world to make it more vivid, so Hashem could have, for that purpose, created a golden menorah and showed him a golden menorah. And although Hashem could have made a golden menorah to show it to him, but the menorah in the Mishkan had to be made by Moshe and the Jewish people. It says in the Re'im, he says Hashem doesn't make a miracle for nothing. You're not allowed to use a menorah. The first time they actually made the menorah in 770, the golden menorah that's in 770, I think it was the 6th night of Hanukkah, and there were 7 candles because of the shamish, and it looked exactly like the golden menorah in the Beis Hamikdash, because the menorah in the Beis Hamikdash had 7 candles. And I forgot what the Rebbe said to do. The Rebbe didn't want that the first time the menorah was used, it should be exactly like the menorah in the Beis Hamikdash. It was only ready that day. It wasn't like they wanted to do it, let's make it by the Beis Hamikdash. It happened to be ready that day, but the Rebbe said to do something, got what it was, so it shouldn't be identical to the menorah of the Beis Hamikdash. So the menorah you're not allowed to make your own golden menorah exactly like the menorah in Beis Hamikdash. And therefore, if Hashem, so their aim says Hashem can't make a golden menorah just to show Moshe Rabbeinu, because that would be an unnecessary miracle, and you will now have this extra menorah in the world that has no purpose because it can't be used. And it might even be, the Rebbe says, that it might be forbidden to make an actual physical menorah, even for Hashem. In other words, even for Hashem, who keeps his Magid Dvar of Yaakov, Hashem keeps his own mitzvahs. So if Hashem tells us not to make a menorah out of 7 candles, like the Beis Hamikdash, so Hashem also can't make a menorah out of 7 candles. That, you might argue, is the why Hashem did not make a menorah to show Moshe Rabbeinu a physical golden menorah. Hashem instead made a golden menorah of fire to show Moshe Rabbeinu the golden menorah of fire, because he's not allowed to, according to his Torah, to make that menorah. So we have 2 answers: either because Hashem, there will be a miracle that has no purpose, a miracle that doesn't go anywhere because the menorah can't be used, or Hashem's not allowed to make a golden menorah just for as an exhibition to show Moshe Rabbeinu, this is what you should do. But you're not allowed to do something because you're not allowed to make a menorah out of 7 candles. That's what you might want to argue. But all these arguments only apply to the menorah, don't apply to the half shekel. There are half shekels in this world. Hashem could have shown Moshe Rabbeinu any half shekel, and therefore the question is, what is the meaning of Hashem showing Moshe Rabbeinu to explain to him the size of the half shekel? Why does he show him a coin of fire? In language of Zev Kesser, a coin of fire, as they say in South Africa, a coin with a chirik. Okay. We're on, those listeners just tuned in, we're on page 409, the first column on the bottom. But there's just a question we need to understand. There's another Tosfos in the Chulin, and Tosfos addresses the question: what doesn't Moshe understand? What Tosfos say? So Tosfos Masechet Menachos Teres Hashena Hani El Afkisher Arol in Skashman El Shtamal Davar Mayochel Od Miten Mekafar Nafshe. Tosfos says the reason why the Gemara doesn't count the half shekel among the other things that Moshe had a question about is because Moshe was wondering what it was. Moshe knew what it was. Moshe's question was, how does it work? How, by everyone giving a half coin, does it accomplish anything? That's what his question is. That's what Tosfos addresses Moshe, the question of the half shekel. Moshe's question wasn't what it is. Moshe's question is, how does it work? Shnei Tirutz and the Tosfos say themselves that seemingly Tosfos' two answers contradict each other. Tosfos' two answers contradict each other. How do they contradict each other? The fiat is that Tosfos in Menachos says it was Moshe. Tosfos in Menachos says, I have no idea. Moshe Rabbeinu tells Hashem, I have no idea what you mean by half shekel. I know what menorah is. I just don't know how he's supposed to make it with all the details. I know what reptiles are. I don't know the details of every single reptile. But the half shekel, I have no idea what you're talking about. That's how Tosfos in Menachos says why Moshe's question about the half shekel was unique. And it was not counted as the three things that Moshe didn't understand because his question wasn't about the detail. His question was like, what are you talking about? That's what Tosfos says, explains in Menachos. But the Tosfos in Chulin says Moshe was exactly how it was made. He just doesn't know how does it work. How does it achieve atonement? Just because you give a half coin, all of a sudden you're cleansed. Tosfos in Menachos says Moshe didn't just have a question about the half shekel. He had no idea what it was at all. On the other hand, as kiim. According to Tosfos and Chulin, Moshe didn't know the hold on a second. Yeah, according to Tosfos and Chulin, Moshe knew exactly what the half shekel was. He knew the half shekel, the size of the half shekel. Even if God wouldn't show it to him, he knew what the half shekel was. So why did Hashem show him the half shekel? It was for some other purpose. The question is, what is that other purpose? How does that answer Moshe's question? If Moshe's question is, how does it achieve atonement? So how does Hashem answer that question? By showing him the point of fire. So we have a couple of questions here. We have a question of a contradiction in Tosfos. One Tosfos says Moshe has no idea what the half shekel is. Other Tosfos says Moshe knows exactly what the half shekel is. We have to understand, according to Tosfos, which says that Moshe has no idea the exact measurement of the half shekel, you have to understand why does Hashem answer that question by showing me the coin of fire. So to answer all these questions, let's go to the Rambam. To answer all these questions, let's explain first the words of the Rambam regarding the half shekel. The commandment that Hashem gave us to give a half coin every year. The Rambam says, where did Hashem command us to give the half shekel? In the Torah, in this week's Torah portion. Each person should give an atonement for himself. But Hashem says in the Torah, this is what you should give. He brings two verses from this week's Torah portion. Each person should give an atonement for his soul. And the second verse that Rambam mentions is, this is what you should give. How come the Rambam has to bring two verses? Just say, it says in the Torah, this is what you should give. How come the Rambam has to bring the other verse? You should give as an atonement for your soul. What's the purpose of that other verse? One verse is enough. The question is even greater because the commandment to give a half shekel is written specifically in the second verse that Rambam quotes. It says, this is what you should give. You should give a half a shekel. The first verse, as we learned in yesterday's Chitas, Hashem says to Moshe Rabbeinu, I want to count the Jewish people. I don't want them to have a plague. And when you count the Jewish people, it causes an ayin hara, it causes a plague. And therefore, in order they shouldn't have a plague, I want everyone to give a coin, and that way it won't be counting them directly. I want to count them through the coin. So in that verse is not talking about the mitzvah of giving a half coin. It's just saying how Hashem wants to count the Jewish people through a coin. So the verse that Rambam brings down over here seems to not be relevant to what he's trying to prove. He's trying to prove there's a mitzvah to give a half coin. The first verse he mentions is just saying why a coin should be used to count the Jewish people. It's not about the mitzvah of giving a half coin. Every year, every Jew had to give a half coin to the Beis Hamikdash. From the first of Adar, they will make an announcement. Everyone should come to Beis Hamikdash, give a half coin to contribute towards the karbanos, towards the sacrifices, the karban tamid are brought every day. So that Ram mentioned, that's the halacha. He has a verse. The verse is Zayin is what you should give. Why does it bring the other verse about what coin is used to count the Jewish people? It's not relevant. The explanation is there are two halachas about the half shekel. Anyway, it's very cute. See how all of you are doing such different things while you're listening to this share. We have all kinds of activities happening. We have Zev, we have Dr. Bressman, we have David. David's driving with his tefillin on down the 101. Actually, already in the valley, not driving on the 101. Anyways, so the mitzvah giving the half shekel, there are two halachas. Number one, and since when you give the half coin, you have to give it with one gift. You're not allowed to give it in portions. You have to give it in one shot. You're not allowed to give a deposit today and a little more the next day. When I was a yeshiva student, I needed to go need to give money to go into the mikveh, and it cost $2, only a quarter on me. So I said, can I give this to you as a deposit? Anyways, it worked. I was able to go in the mikveh that day. Anyways, the half shekel has to be a full half coin. You can't give a deposit, and you have to give it in one shot, the whole half coin. Number two, also, you have to use a half coin. You're not allowed to use a equivalent of the half coin. It has to be a coin of a half shekel. It can't be the equivalent of machshel. You're not allowed to give silver, the value of a half coin. You have to give an actual half coin. That's also similar as we just had before Purim, where it's customary to give half coins. Better to have actual silver $50 or $50 if they're not silver. Better to have silver because you want to give in a similar way that was given then a coin which is a half, which is actually a currency of a half. So these are two halachas of the half shekel. Number one is you have to give it in one installment. You can't give it in many installments. Number two, you actually have to use the coin called the half shekel. Al pasuk shel Rambam tzarich shetarich losses semach shekel b'hamachas masbir as a rogoyna ragad shavi shasib l'kachi f'nesinas semach shekel b'kor. What's the reason that you have to give the half shekel in one installment? How come you can't give the half shekel in many installments? So the Ragad Shav Goyen explains that the machatz shekel, the half shekel, has the same status as a sacrifice. Regarding an atonement, you can't give in installments. The Gemara says that if a person steals from a convert and there's no relatives as a convert, so who do you give who do you return it to? So it goes to the Kohen. So it says the Gemara, let's say you stole $1,000 and you give the Kohen $500 today and $500 tomorrow. Does that work? The Gemara says it does not work. It does not achieve atonement. Why doesn't it achieve atonement? Because the idea of giving the theft to the Kohen is not in the same status as a regular return of a theft. Regular return of a theft is you damage somebody, give it back to him. When you're giving the value of the object that you stole from the convert to the Kohen, it's more an act of atonement than an act of compensation to the person you wronged. You're not giving it back to the same person. The guy you stole from me, he's passed away, he has no relatives. But you give it to the Kohen. So it's sort of like giving a sacrifice to God as an atonement. So the Gemara says you return it to the convert in installments you have not fulfilled your obligation. Why not? Because you're giving a sacrifice to God. A sacrifice to God cannot be in installments. So the Rogachover says, the same is also with the half coin. Since the purpose of the half coin is to be an atonement, so it cannot be given in installments. My time, the Torah calls the gift of the return of the theft to the ger a sacrifice, a guilt sacrifice, and therefore it can't be done in installments. So this atonement of the half coin, the half coin given as a sacrifice to God, given as an atonement. There's two ways you could explain it. Aleph, one way you could explain why this achieves atonement is because you use the money, use the value of the coin to buy sacrifices, and sacrifices bring atonement. That's why it's called atonement. Number two, or you could say, it's not that you use the value of the currency the rest of the year to buy the sacrifices. And therefore, we consider the half coin also to be an atonement. The actual gift of the half coin itself is like a carbon yachid. This itself is a carbon. And there's a difference between the way you explain this. If you say that the purpose of giving the half coin was to buy the sacrifices, so then the status of the half coin is a carbon sibur. It's called a communal sacrifice. This was given to buy the daily communal sacrifices. Every morning a sacrifice is brought in the Beis HaMikdash. How is it purchased? With the money that all the Jewish people contributed with a half coin. So you gave money in the month of Adar, and it's an atonement for you. Why is it an atonement? Because you contributed towards a communal sacrifice. That's one way of explaining it. Another way of explaining it is, it's not that your gift is considered an atonement because of what it purchases. It's because right now you've given something to God, and that gift to God right now is considered a sacrifice. So it's you've brought a sacrifice right now, and therefore, what kind of sacrifice is it? It's not a communal sacrifice; it's a personal, private sacrifice. So those are two ways of explaining what the half shekel is: either a private sacrifice or a public sacrifice. And we're going to see that this is the difference between the Rashi and the Rambam. That the different how to explain what the half shekel is. Is it a private sacrifice or a public sacrifice? Okay, so let's just recap where we went to today. Went through a lot of different concepts today. Let's go briefly to what we've done today. We brought the teachings of our sages, which say that Moshe Rabbeinu had a difficulty understanding what the half shekel is, and to explain this, Hashem chose Moshe Rabbeinu a coin of fire, and we compared and contrasted Moshe Rabbeinu's question about the half coin with Moshe Rabbeinu's three other questions. Moshe Rabbeinu also didn't understand the rules of reptiles and the menorah and the new moon. In all of those instances, God shows Moshe Rabbeinu what he means. And the Gemara doesn't count the half coin as one of the things Moshe has a question about. And we have two Tosfos which seem to contradict each other that explain why this isn't counted as one of the four times. One Tosfos says Moshe Rabbeinu's question was larger by the half coin than the other cases. By the other cases, by the reptiles, by the moon, Moshe had a question of the detail. He didn't know exactly what size the moon had to be. He didn't know exactly what size, what the different reptiles were. He didn't know exactly how to make the menorah. He knew in general what a menorah meant and what reptiles are. He didn't know the details. That's what Moshe Rabbeinu had difficulty with in the other three scenarios, and that's why they're in one category. Regarding the half shekel, Moshe Rabbeinu has no idea at all what Hashem is talking about. That's how one Tosfos explains why this is a different category. Then there's another Tosfos which says Moshe Rabbeinu's question is different. Moshe Rabbeinu knew exactly what the half coin was. His question was something else. His question was, how could it be that a half coin can cause atonement, can cause a kapara for the Jewish people? It's just a half a coin. How does it cause atonement? So it seems that these two Tosfos contradict each other. In one Tosfos, Moshe knows exactly what it is. Moshe has no idea what it is. And if Moshe does know what it is, how does Hashem answer Moshe Rabbeinu and tell him what it is by showing him a coin of fire? If Moshe doesn't know the size of the half coin, then show him a coin. And why would Hashem show him a coin of fire? How does that answer his question about the size of the coin? So to answer all this, we began learning the Rambam's classification of what this mitzvah is. Number one, this mitzvah has to be given all at once. You can't give the half a coin in installments. Number two, it has to be a coin called a half a coin. You can't give this the value of the half coin. You can't give what's called eser gera. A half shekel is equal to a currency of 10 gera. You can't give 10 gera. It has to be specifically a coin of a half shekel coin. So to explain why this is, we brought in the Rogachover, who says that the classification of the half coin is sort of like a sacrifice, and therefore it can't be given in installments, because just like a sacrifice can't be given in installments, as we see by the laws of a theft from a convert, it has to be given all at once. So too the half coin can't be given in installments, because it's like a sacrifice. A sacrifice of atonement can't be given in installments. And thus we're left with one question, which we're going to discuss tomorrow. What kind of sacrifice is it? Is it considered a sacrifice of the community because its value was used to purchase the communal sacrifices? Or is it considered the sacrifice of an individual because you're giving it right now as an individual to Hashem? That's what we're up to. A lot of information. I think Zev is thinking TMI. Any questions or comments? You got
it? This is right on line with that Machzos of Shekel Sicha that I show you almost every year.
No,
which is it's all about teshuvah at the end of the day. And Moshe didn't understand how the Machzos of Shekel, giving the kohen, does and accomplishes teshuvah. And up until that point of Hashem showing him the kohen of fire, it was not possible. It was potential in Hashem's essence and mind, but there was no betachlis being able to accomplish teshuvah with the Machzos of Shekel until Hashem pulled out the kohen of fire from under the Kisei HaKavod. At that specific moment is when he, I guess, downloaded into Asiya that we are now able to accomplish teshuvah with the Machzos of Shekel. It was all potential up until there. And that's what Moshe didn't understand. The how is, how could we possibly get teshuvah from something as simple as a coin, the most basis mineral that there is, that you have to mine deep into the earth, that's the lowest of low, can accomplish something as high as teshuvah. And it wasn't possible. That's up until Moshe was right. It's like, this doesn't work. This doesn't equal. Until Hashem showed him the kohen of fire, which fires the most ethereal with the lowest of the kohen, it synced together. And at that moment, we're now able to accomplish teshuvah.
So Hashem invested spirituality in our giving. So when we give, we're giving ruchnius. We're giving spirituality. Is that what you're saying?
It's in essence, yeah. He's giving us the ability to connect to that most highest level of Shemayim and Yud Gimel Midas Orachimim, etc., etc. I mean, it's a very good Shemaksif. And Machzos of Shekel is one of my favorites.
Okay, we'll see how the Rebbe explains in this Sikha. And I think there's a different explanation in this Sikha. We'll see. Have a great day, Zev. Great day, Jacob Resman. Great day, David. Great day, Jonathan. Great day, David Issever. Great day, Rebero. Sei gesund.
Sure.